Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is Jeremy Werner and Derek Piper live at State Farm Center where the cleanup crew is going around. So if you hear some background noise, that's the great people cleaning up this place. After Illinois defeats Oakland 66-54, a little bit closer than we expected. But I did see Derek, our buddy Alex Rue over at BTN, tweeted out it was basically the same score as last year as Illinois defeated Oakland 64-53. That Oakland team was a little bit better, though. There's no Jack Golke here tonight, no Trey Townsend, who had a really good game against Illinois, as Terrence Shannon basically shut down Golke in that one. But a little closer than we expected against an Oakland team that lost four of its top scorers from the team that beat Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. And that zone just has a way of screwing with people. And it certainly screwed up with Kasparas Yakashonis, 5 turnovers, Trey White, 4 turnovers, Illinois in total 18 turnovers. So it was gritty, Derek. Illinois played some defense, but wasn't pretty.
It definitely wasn't. Obviously, if you got to get out some of those off shooting nights or struggles, you'd rather have it happen tonight than next week against Alabama, where you're going to need to be operating at tip-top form. But, yeah, I mean, that's what Oakland's defense is meant to do, kind of junk up the game, essentially, is to throw a look at you that takes you out of your offense. There's something you don't really practice against. And it's kind of weird, obscure, Brad call it awkward to prepare for, because they're in this 1-3-1, and it's a matchup zone, so it's really not – it's hard to replicate. They kind of fly around and do different things, and those it can just kind of make you hesitant, make you gun shy. I thought Illinois attacked it well early. They got the ball into Ivisic inside, and were able to get downhill at times and get some threes. But there was a middle of the first half where it just seemed to stagnate. Illinois' energy level kind of leveled off, and Oakland hung around. Fortunately, this is a brutal three-point shooting team. At least that's who they've been so far. I mean, they're 2 for 30 from three at Michigan. They were 3 for 25, 26, whatever it was at Boise State, and they didn't make very many tonight either. So that helped Illinois survive this. Some bright spots, which we'll hit on, especially defensively. I think Illinois has an identity defensively based on what they've shown earlier in the season, and I think it starts with Kylan Boswell and some different guys that have given some good effort. But yeah, Brad said it tonight. I mean, they're, for as talented as this team is offensively, it's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be kind of a shot-making contest to who can win and score in the 80s. Like, you got to be gritty. You got to be able to win ugly, and there's something to be said for that. But I said it also after the Eastern game. Like, don't get too comfortable with this team. Don't get too comfortable in general in college basketball. But with this team that still has a lot of new pieces, has some things to figure out, and tonight was an example of that.
I know the talent is through the roof with this team, and tonight doesn't change what I think of what this team is capable of, but we kind of expected these, right? Like, especially against Oakland and Greg Campy and what they throw at you. This is going to be what you have to go through during the season is different flavors and different teams. And I do think one thing this team is going to struggle with, Derek, is physicality. And Oakland brought that tonight as well. So I think there are, some things that they can learn from these games, but I think every Big Ten team, a lot of the good teams are struggling, all right, like to win some of these early games, and that is why you schedule them, is to show what kinks you have, and then how do we iron them out moving forward. So that's the most important thing. But Tomislav Ivisic has been great offensively, 20 points tonight, a lot of those floaters, runners, as he was in the middle of this zone defense. And Derek, obviously, he's been experienced. We knew what his skill set could be. He's played at a high level. So I'm not surprised that he's had success, especially against lower level opponents. But what do you think about his game and his skill set that will translate against the Alabamas, against the Arkansas of the world moving forward?
I think a lot offensively translates because of just his versatility, his ability to stretch the floor. I think he'll shoot the three better ultimately as he settles in and finds consistency there. I think he'll shoot it better than he has early on, in my opinion. Ultimately, just the post-up game certainly will be a lot tougher against the Umar Balos and the bigger size that you'll go up against at high majors. I mean, as soon as next week against Cliff Amori, who's one of the best post defenders in all of college basketball. So there's some of that can be questioned in terms of efficiency. But he's got great touch. I mean, he showed it tonight. There aren't a lot of guys that can be comfortable at that 8 to 10 foot range and just kind of shot put it in at times and have the touch to be able to do that. And back to the basket, traditional post-ups, left hook, he can do that as well. So I think it's some of the things that I wonder about him as you elevate in competition. It is physicality. Like defensively, he kind of got out physical at times, picked up a couple of fouls. Rebounding wise, I think that's something that you'll have to kind of gauge and see. I think he's been pretty good up to this point. But when you get bigger athletes, more explosive, that could be some things. And then maybe in drop coverage is another thing that guys can try to maybe go at him ultimately. But just all that he brings to the table offensively, opening up the paint, being a playmaker, those type of things I think are there regardless of the competition level because he is that skilled.
Yeah, and shout out to this Oakland team and some of the dunks they had tonight, man. But they were physical. Is it Alan David Mukeba? Had some really impressive dunks here. So they had some athleticism, they had some physicality, and I think that was good for Illinois to see. I think the most interesting guy tonight, though, is Kylan Boswell, right? I mean, you're gonna write about him after this game, Derek. There's kind of a dichotomy about him right now because I thought he was as impactful as any Illinois player outside of Ivisic because of his defense. It was pretty dominant. You did say DQ Cole threw some up there. Felt like Philip Seymour Hoffman in a long game poly a little bit at times with their guards. And Woodrich was 1 for 9 from 3. Those guys combined for 3 for 16. They throw him up. Remember Jack Golke? He had the green light to shoot. But I did think Boswell, his on-ball defense, really messed with those guys, including their point guard. So I think he's shown a lot there. Offensively, though, it's left you wanting more. He did hit a 3 late in this game, which was good to see. Drew a foul, got some free throws. But the offense just hasn't looked comfortable yet. He was great in the post game. I encourage everybody to go watch the press conference on our YouTube channel here. But he did say it's an adjustment going from Arizona, which was very strict offense, a lot of sets, but Illinois is more free flowing. So, what do you make of Kylan Boswell through 3 games? I guess is my question.
In the 3 keys in a pick, I've wrote it twice the last 2 games that I want to see him find a rhythm offensively because I think it's important. Not that Illinois is going to have trouble scoring, not that they can't find other options, even if he's not one of their top go-to scorers. I don't think he needs to be that, but it's just he's been in some big games more than anybody on this roster. He's been a proven quality 3-point shooter, so I want him confident in taking those shots. So that's been a little concerning is that he's looked uncomfortable, and I appreciate his honesty tonight in saying that it's been different. He's struggled at times. He's trying to find that rhythm in a new role and a new scheme offensively, so that's all different for him. And I think in general, I think that he'll settle in. I mean, he's had enough good showings, albeit he was inconsistent in Arizona on the whole, but he's had some good games in terms of just if he's a kick-out option as a 3-point shooter, if he's a guy that can push the ball in transition. I expect that to come around for him. And then defensively, I think it's been really encouraging. I think Illinois, on the whole, given the opponent, we got to obviously take that into consideration, but given the opponent, that they've shown more grit on the ball, and it starts with Kylan. And Kylan's been able to really get after people, chase people through screens. DQ Cole, 1 for 15 from 3 against Boise State, and then came in here and did not catch any more warmth to his jump shot. But Kylan made sure there was no space to operate, and really it wasn't just on DQ. Like I don't remember who he was going against over there on the sideline. He had some bite to him tonight, like in terms of some trash talk, just slapping the ball out of guys' hands and making them continuously inbound it. He had some nasty to him, and Brad's wanted this team to have some nasty, and I think he can set a tone there that's going to be very positive.
I think it was on Woodrich where he knocked the ball out of his hands. But Jalen Jones, their other point guard, 25 minutes was a non-factor whatsoever. So he really shut him down. We talk about how the comp to like Trent Frazier. Trent was so quick and tenacious, but he was so slight. I mean, Boswell's strong, man. So I think he can be one of the best on-ball defenders, Brad's had here, along with Trent. I mean, obviously Terrence was a different animal when it comes to that with his size and athleticism, but I think he's really embraced that. It's good to see. And he seems to be taking in stride the offensive struggles. I mean, he's 4 for 16 shooting. That's not good enough. He has only had 1 turnover in the last couple games. And I do like, even though Dre Gibbs-Walhorn felt like he deserved some more minutes tonight, I do like that Brad is kind of riding Kylan. I mean, 35 minutes tonight, Derek, because he is so important to this team. He's so much different than everything else. He's a good complement to Kasparas Yakashonis, and they need him to get going offensively. I just like to see him get to the rim more. That is my biggest thing. I see he did a little floater at one point. He's so strong. I know he might not be the most explosive towards the rim, but I just feel like he can body some guys, draw some fouls, and get to the free throw line. That's something I wanted to see Illinois do more tonight. They didn't take advantage of getting into the bonus in the halves early. They only shot, 17 free throws tonight. It felt like a lot of those came late. So I feel like he can be one of those guys along with Kasparas who can get to the foul line and just get some of those easy buckets.
For sure. Yeah, I do think DGL should have played more 12 minutes tonight, and he was somebody that did draw a couple of fouls going to the rim. He's got some vertical explosion, more than Kylan in that sense. But yeah, you do have the physicality of Kylan that should be able to get to the free throw line at a reasonable rate. Ultimately, I think especially in the open court, and I think Brad and he talked tonight about trying to find that balance, and really he wanted to see him play fast against Oakland, although it did ultimately play out to where they were sloppy with the ball, and maybe it just didn't click for them in that way. But I think Kylan in particular, when you get stops and get out and run, can really show himself of going to the rim and putting pressure on people. It's interesting with that guard trio. Number one, it's great that DGL is playing well enough to where we don't feel like he is logging enough minutes, and the decisions to make there with those three guards and whether to play them all together. We've seen that a little bit here and there. But Will played 28 tonight, and we can talk about him. I thought he defended well also, but it's important when the threes don't go down, which they weren't really tonight, of going to the rim. I think we talked a lot about analytics up to this point. I was looking at it. They took 21 non-rim twos. So I'm sure Brad's not going to love that. Some of those, obviously, Tommy in that, again, 8 to 10 foot looked good, quality shots. But it was Kylan at times. It was Will Riley at times. Guys kind of stopping short of the rim, shying away from some contact and throwing up a floater. They're going to address that and make sure they make the tough play, draw the contact, go to the bucket.
Will is ridiculous from three. He just didn't get very many open looks from there tonight. I thought Hummerkaus got a lot of great looks. He just shot 2 of 7. I don't think that's going to happen all that often. I will ride with that guy shooting, and it just felt like he missed some good looks. But yeah, Will, the physicality is going to get him at times. So he shied away from trying to take it to the rim, but he did draw some fouls, I think, in that second half. Got to the free throw line a little bit. Did the Reggie Miller kick, flop for 3 free throws.
Is he 3 for 3 on getting fouled from deep? I think he's
every game, right?
I think it's every game so far.
Boy, he's a talent. And you mentioned, like, we've been talking about it during the games. I think we mentioned on the last podcast, Derek, like he's a better defender than I thought he would. Now, I do think, the Big Ten teams are going to go at him, and that physicality he could struggle with. But the care level on defense for him and Kasparas, 2 guys we think of just offensively, and we're really concerned about defensively. I don't know if they're going to be strong individual defenders in Big Ten play, but I don't think they're going to kill you. Will, with his ability to, kind of follow through and chase and contest from behind, I think Kasparas cares. He really seems to care about guarding. I thought he looked really good in the first half guarding. The fact that those guys aren't zeros on defense is a little encouraging, because I didn't know if that could be a possibility.
You knew of the freshman group that Merez obviously has a lot of want to defensively, but I feel like the other 2 have been better than expected up to this point. KJ, with his size, allows him to play through some contact. Mm-hmm. And I just think, he's got the buy-in there to want to chase guys through screens and compete at that end of the floor, which is good to see. And then Will, and I think another thing, KJ's probably a better athlete in some facets than some might expect. So there's some of that too. And Will's rangy. He's got some length, even though I know some has been made in terms of like NBA draft stuff. He's got like a negative, a slightly negative, or just an even wingspan, whatever. I don't get into all that kind of stuff. But even if he does, he's like 6'8", 6'9".
He's still long, right? He's a long. I mean, you could play him at the 2 sometimes, but I mean, he's a long 3 at the college level.
Yeah, for sure. He can move around, and I think his activity level, his want to, has been good. He blocked a shot tonight. It was really just getting into his defender and fighting. And Brad said, yeah, I wanted to play him 28 minutes because he was chasing guys through their actions. Oakland runs a lot of shooters off of screens, put shooters in quotations. I don't know how many actual shooters. I guess shot makers and shooters are different. But
shot takers for sure.
Shot takers. But yeah, guys off of screens and those type of things. And yeah, he was out there to compete and play. And while he's known for his offense, and boy, he's fun to watch when he has it going. It's good to see, and he'll earn minutes the more he competes like that defensively.
18 turnovers tonight, led to 18 Oakland points. At one time, it was like 18 Oakland points on like 15 turnovers. So Kasper Sakshon has struggled. 5 turnovers. His parents were in attendance. I don't know if he was too amped up for that, but they came all the way here. But 4 points on 0 of 3 shooting. Did get to the free throw line 4 times. Did rebound. He's rebounding really high level. 3 assists, had a gorgeous one to Ivisic for a dunk late in that game. But he was pressing. Brad at one point said, calm the F down. So, I mean, it's kind of a reminder, Derek. I wrote this in the quick hits. Like, he is a freshman. Like, he's going to look so good at times, but there are some things that he's seeing that are new compared to what he saw in Europe, including a zone, apparently, because Brad Underwood said they don't play zone. So what'd you make of Kasper's struggles tonight?
I guess Brad probably doesn't think, in terms of basketball sense, Europeans aren't soft, because Brad hates zones in terms of his own team. And, it says that he hasn't seen that. I'm sure he probably hasn't seen a 1-3-1 matchup like that is just kind of unique. So I think that he did get sped up, allowed maybe one mistake to then kind of compound with another one. It's just a freshman playing like a freshman, and he's 18 years old. You understand it, that there's some of that where maybe just trying to do a little too much and allowing things to just, snowball a little bit. And Brad took him out, and I thought he finished decent. He went back into the game and made a few plays. Like you said, the pass to Tommy was beautiful, and he'll have those highs and lows. Like that's going to come with the territory. There's some really good freshmen that have done that. Jalen Hood-Schifino last year or 2 years ago at Indiana, I mean, November, December was kind of rocky and consistent, and then he became one of the best guards in the Big Ten, if not the country, down the stretch. So I do still feel like he is just very polished for an 18-year-old, but there are times where you're going to see some of that, and it'd be surprising if not.
It's part of his game too. Like turnovers are part of his game, and part of that is just the usage rate he has. But he will make some plays that he struggles with. He just tries to force things at times. For me tonight, it was a lot of Trey White had 4 turnovers too. It was, and Ivisic struggled to catch some of them, but there were these bounce passes in the paint. Like, you just can't make those at this level. But yeah, Trey struggled as well tonight with that. I thought he had a good start offensively, and then just the turnovers got to him. And Brad was asked about it after the game. I don't think he liked that. He was asked, like, hey, at the 3, these 2 guys, Trey played 14 minutes and Will Riley played 28 minutes. I do think it was a fair question, but I think the point is that Will Riley's coming off the bench, Derek, but he's the guy at that position, right? Like he is clearly going to get, I think, a bulk of the minutes because of his offense and the fact that he's playing some defense. But yeah, what'd you think of Trey and Will in that kind of rotation there?
Yeah, each night he's playing starter minutes. He's been among the top 3 in minutes logged in each game, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I think that you've seen some positives from Trey. Like he knocked down some threes in the last game, and I do agree that he started the game pretty well and had a couple assists. But yeah, he also got in some trouble trying to facilitate. Make a good point. There was a lot of that around the painted area. There's those bounce passes, some wraparound passes that just got stolen away. So
he picked up the ball on the sidelines a couple times that felt like led to him too.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's going to be a constant decision for Brad to try to blend lineups. I do understand the point he's making is that there is no constraints on really who can play together. Like, because you could make the same question about Dre tonight versus playing Kylan as much as you did or KJ as much as you did, and he could say, well, if I wanted to, I could play all 3 together, and if you wanted to, you could play Will and Trey together. But within that, you are going to have to make some choices. And I thought the right one was to play Will as much as you did because the defense was there, and I do think Trey can be a positive defensively as well because he's got physicality to him. He's got some of the good measurables, but and you got rebounding too. So
Yeah.
there's going to be nights where you'll find certain guys that he just rolls with a certain lineup. And tonight was Trey's turn to sit a little bit more, and will earn that spot because he competed defensively.
Yeah, the last thing I got before we get into some of these questions on our live YouTube, if you got any, get those in quick. We're going to wrap up in about 5-10 minutes here. But it felt like this was a couple Ben Hummercuff's threes from being, Illinois getting away from it. I mean, 22-9, I was thinking, oh, this could be a laugher tonight. This could be like Oakland's game last week against Boise State. And then turnovers just let them back into it. But they did get some open looks on those threes, and they just didn't go in. But I also thought midway through that second half, Illinois went on a 5-minute scoring drought and made 1 of 11 shots. And Oakland had some shots that were close to going in. It felt like Woodrich had a couple go in and out. They had a couple taps that Greg Campy just couldn't believe one didn't go in on an offensive rebound. That would have cut it to single digits. I just sat there and wondered, what if they had gotten it to 8 or 6? Like, what would the response of this team have been? Because, man, they just had turnovers and missed shots and empty possessions. And I just wonder what it would have been like if Oakland makes 1 or 2 and gets it within 2 possessions.
They played poorly enough to have it be very much in the balance late. Like,
I looked at you and said, they're going to F around and maybe find out.
Yeah, no, that was a good line. I like that. It very well could have happened. One thing I would credit is it felt like a lot of Oakland shots, even the ones that like kind of rolled around the rim and came out, were a lot of contested shots.
For sure.
So I think that Illinois deserves credit for that, certainly. It is a team, though, on the whole, that's really struggled to shoot the ball. Yeah, I mean, I was watching late last night, Oregon at home against Portland. Portland's was in the 300s in KenPom, and they should have lost. They're down 6 with a minute and a half to go and ultimately pulled that thing out. So you see this around college basketball. You see Purdue messing around with Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and go on down the line. Yale as well, and EIU beating Indiana at halftime. It just feels like it was Illinois' turn to have one of those. So that's not to say that you can't address some things or have some takeaways from it, good and bad. They'll have to do a better job of executing offensively, not having the backbreaking turnovers, and learning from this for sure.
All right, Derek, let's get to a few of these questions before we get out of here. TB, I can't recall any Big Ten team breezing through these early cupcake games this season. Everyone has had lackluster outings. That's why you play them, right, Derek? I mean, Minnesota lost tonight to North Texas at home.
Yep.
Poor Ben Johnson. I just don't think that's going to end well this year. But, yeah, that's why you play them. And there's going to be one every year, right? Like even last year's team that ended up being so dominant for that stretch, like, they struggled against Oakland. Of course, Oakland ended up being a little bit better than we thought, but you're going to go through these in the non-conference. That's why you do it. What was the other one last year? Valpo, that they were struggling there for a while. I think they were down at halftime before kind of coming back and winning. They're going to happen. You got to learn from them. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it seems like that is it's a recurring thing year after year for even really good teams to have 1 or 2 of these. I think back to
Illinois was down 7 at halftime. Sorry to interrupt, but they were down 7 at halftime to Valpo last year.
Yeah, and as good as last year's team was, with all the old guys, and yes, they were trying to blend it together, still as this team is too. Go back to, was it the breakthrough 2019-20 season where they went to OT with Nicholls State on opening night?
Oh yeah,
remember that? And that team, had to really click in January. They had some lumps that they took early in that season, but it happens. It obviously happens. I'm not trying to say, I do think I'm not faulting anybody for getting so excited after that first week where things were so pretty and they're bombing threes and the offense was great. And it feels like a freshman record is going to get tied or broken every single night. Like, it's not all like that. It's not all like that. And like I said, don't get too comfortable. I wouldn't take too much from, blasting OVC teams the way they did, and I wouldn't take too much from as ugly as parts of tonight were. So even Bama last night playing McNeese State, that wasn't a pretty game, and that was within single digits. And yeah, I think McNeese is better than this Oakland team. I don't think this Oakland team is very good, contrary to what Brad says about his buddy's team. But yeah, I mean, it's a game you just try to get out alive in, and Illinois did that.
We got to talk about Bam before we get out of here. TB, who is our ISO guy in this roster? TSJ was great in this role. Wondering who will emerge as that player that can take us to the rim in a half-court offense. I mean, Kasparis can do it, right? I mean, he is more distributor than scorer, but I do think he can. It'll be interesting to see how he balances his scoring moving forward to be more aggressive as a scorer. I think he really feels comfortable right now as the distributor, but that is where a Kylan can be really important, right? Being able to create that way. I think Will can too. It's just the strength perspective. Can he get to the rim? Can he get fouled? But he can create off the bounce, Derek. We saw that tonight. He can do that and kind of get to his spots. It just does he have the strength to finish at the rim or get fouled at the rim?
Yeah, I mean, Will's definitely a talented ISO player. It's more like a Matthew Meyer pull-up jumper ISO than it is TSJ going to the rim type of thing. But I do think that, yeah, KJ can do that. And I think eventually we'll have a conversation or we'll just see him go off in terms of his scoring. I mean, Brad mentioned that he had a stretch. I think it was Adidas Next Generation tournament where he has 17 assists. And the next game he scores, 37 or whatever it was. Like, he can flip a switch and go off as a scorer. He's definitely trying to be the table setter. And maybe there'll be times where you want him to push the gas a little bit more. But
what I loved about the first two games, Derek, was 16 free throw attempts. So he gets to the free throw line a lot. He got 4 tonight to get all 4 of his points. Like, that is a strength of his, is he gets fouled a lot, and he's got that strength and that size to where he can hold off people and get to the rim.
Well, that's why Brad got the tech tonight. He was mad that KJ on a couple of probes into the lane where he got bumped didn't get the call. And I know he was saying, hey, you got the highest free throw rate of anybody in the country. Ken Pom said it was top 5 at least nationally going into this game. So
that's what he was yelling. Number 1 in fouls or draw or something.
Yeah. I looked it up on Ken Pom. Yeah, he was like 4th in foul rate or free throw rate going into tonight. So Brad was fighting for his guy. He does have a knack for getting to the line. So I think that if you're specifically talking about to the rim, free throws, I think he's a guy. And I like Dre's ability to just kind of blow by dudes tonight and get to the basket. I think
it really stood out, didn't it? Like, just his aggression and ability to elevate and get fouled like that. That was good to see. It felt like no one else was doing that in the first half.
Yep, I think that's something he can certainly build on. And Illinois won and it all worked out. I just would want to see more Dre than I saw tonight.
Yeah. St. Dominic, what's up, St. Dom? I could always depend on TSJ. I felt comfortable going into a battle with TSJ. I don't know what to expect from any of these guys in Big Ten play, especially on the road. I mean, this is kind of what we thought 2 years ago when Terrence came here. It's like, what can you get every night? And let's remember his junior year, it took him a while to kind of assert himself as that player. And that's why I do think it's important. Like, Kylan Boswell struggling a little bit offensively. We've seen that a lot from transfers over the years. Matthew Meyer, Marcus Damask, Alfonso Plummer. These guys kind of struggle to kind of figure out their role. Brad's learning this team. These guys are learning each other. This is all an evolution, and that's why when you have a team with so many new pieces, you have to be a little patient, because what you see in early November is not going to be the same as what you see in late November, or especially January or March. Like, it's all going to evolve and settle in, and this team has a lot of growing to do together.
For sure. I mean, you should have confidence in TSJ last year. I mean, he's 22 years old. He was
All-American,
5th season of college basketball, right? I mean, that's something that he earned and like you said, transformed into. It wasn't like that his first season at Illinois, where he wasn't consistent. So I think that there's still a lot that has to play out in terms of who this team is on a night-to-night basis. Can they establish consistency? Can the freshmen, when they are some of your better players, be that in big moments? We're about to find out here coming up against Alabama, and then obviously bigger tests, or just as big a tests the rest of the way in the non-con with Arkansas, Tennessee, and so on. So that's what is fun to look forward to. I am encouraged just to kind of, I think if Illinois defends with this intensity level, they will increase a little bit of the margin for error if there is some offensive issues or just sloppiness or whatnot. I mean, against Alabama, you have to score a lot. But, yeah, no, it's part of what you knew going into this year. It would be a young team. It would be a team that has pretty much all new pieces, and it will be a process. And you'll have to embrace that. I'm not trying to do the Sixers thing, the process type of thing, but the growing part of it is going to be important. And what you really want is to win enough through the first few months, but by February and March to really hit what this team's going to be. So you're not supposed to have the kind of trust level that you had last year going into the front end of the season. Like that was kind of understood.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it. I think the Ty Rodgers decision to redshirt has made the role identification easier, but that's still like figuring out those roles and solidifying those is still a process for all these guys. And I think that answers Kylan's comfort offensively. Kasparis, when he decides to be a scorer, like all those things I think are going to play out as we move forward. Alabama, Derek, what a showdown. Next Wednesday, you'll be there in Birmingham as Illinois plays a semi-neutral game, but they're going on the road to play one of the best teams in the country, one of the best transfer classes, one of the best prep classes. And Mark Sears, one of the best guards in the country, returns. So they have a loaded team. And I want to shout out Alabama. Look at this non-conference schedule that I brought up. I mean, Arkansas State and McNeese, not easy opponents to play. They struggle to get by those teams, single-digit wins. They had and play Purdue on Friday, so we get to look at those teams on Friday. And Purdue without Jacobson, which is a shame. They're talented freshman center. But then Illinois, Houston, Rutgers, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Creighton. That is an insane non-conference schedule for Nate Hote. So congrats to him. That's awesome that they're playing that. But this is one of the best teams in the country, Derek. What are you expecting? And what will Illinois have to play like to have a chance to beat Alabama?
That shows the confidence level that Nate Oates has in his team, and he should, because he got the two best players back from last year, and Mark Sears and Grant Nelson, two guys that had spectacular NBA. They're going to be, potential NBA players, but spectacular NCAA tournaments. Sears averaged. I know TSJ was as good as anybody in the postseason last year, but I think Sears averaged like 23 a game in the NCAA tournament. Grant Nelson is a stretch four that's skilled and can shoot it from the outside and do a lot of different things as well. And then Amori in the paint. They just have a lot of weapons. So stylistically, two teams that want to play fast, two teams that want to shoot a bunch of threes. They want to win the smart math game. They want to take threes and shots at the rim and free throws. So that's going to be interesting as they try to defend each other. Not saying they do it the same way, but the mission is the same for both of those teams. So I would say, based on the number of possessions that probably get played and the talent in terms of shot making, you got to score probably 85 plus to win that game. We'll see. Ultimately,
you probably need to score close to 90, right?
Yeah.
This is a game that could be in the 90s.
Yeah, it absolutely could. I know you want to have Kylan Boswell have something to say about that in terms of making life tough for Mark Sears. That's a huge, huge matchup, and we'll see how he does in that. I do like that Kylan's played in big games like that before, ultimately. So that's going to be big. And then it's going to be a raucous Bama crowd. I mean, they're playing in Birmingham. It's going to be like when Illinois plays in Chicago the following year. It's a home away from home. That's a fan base that should be excited about their basketball. I know it's football first down there, but Oates is one of the best coaches in the country, and we'll see how Illinois handles that. They did the last time they went down south, obviously did not seem ready for that moment. We'll see if they're ready for this one.
Derek, I was talking to somebody before the game, and we were talking about the schedule and how, Brad Underwood schedules based on the math, right? You schedule these low major opponents who are in the 300s in KenPom. You beat the crap out of them because that helps your analytics, and then you schedule really, really tough, which is great. That's a smart way of scheduling in college basketball. But you know why else I love they schedules this way? Because we get great games like this. Like this is entertainment. This is, good on good teams going up against each other. So I love this. It's the first of many in this non-conference schedule. So I'm pumped for it. Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri. This is awesome. I'm really excited to see how they do in this one. And I think Alabama should definitely have the edge here. Right now, KenPom projects a 5-point Alabama win. But if Illinois makes shots, man, and they defend like they have, I am encouraged by their defense. You never know. And you can get a big win early and gives you a lot of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and I think if you went into this year and knowing what you saw from both teams in the tournament, and again, Bama gets their best two players back, and Illinois essentially gets nothing back, at least in terms of contributions. I know DGL has shown up to be a real role piece, but wasn't used all that much. I mean, it'll only be a 5-point dog. Like, that says a lot about your roster building and your talent, obviously. Big task to go up against that team where they are going to have the experience factor. They're an older team. They have some continuity, and they can use that. And then also, the on the road factor too. But if Illinois goes in there, and look, Bama's not going to play they're not known to play a lot of defense. That's right. So that's something where Illinois offensively should be able to get where they want to go. KJ operating, hopefully he's able to bounce back from this, which I would imagine that he does, and really have the keys in his hands and to make plays. And then you got to make your threes, because I think Bama will make enough of them, even though, Illinois wants to run you off the line, and Brad Underwood teams don't give up a lot of those. But it's kind of that push-pull of just, again, stylistically know that both are trying to accomplish the same thing, and what that looks like. But, a lot of talent on the floor.
Stylistically, this will look a lot better than Kansas, Michigan State. I can tell you that much. It's going to be bombs away in this game. Illinois right now, I think, is top 5 in the country in three-point frequency to field goal ratio. So Alabama likes to toss up those threes too. So this would be good. I'm excited for Derek to go down there, cover this game. And then you got Arkansas the next week. And Arkansas is a different brand of basketball. It's a little bit more Michigan State-like, and they focus on their defense a little bit more than their offense. But thank you to everybody for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you to everybody watching on the live YouTube. Hit that like button before you head out of here. Subscribe to us and hit that notifications bell. We got plenty coming up. We got player grades. Derek's writing about Kylan Boswell. Joy Wagner will have a notebook tomorrow as well. And then we got a big football game this weekend with Illinois against Michigan State. So stay tuned to Illini Inquirer for all of that. For Derek Piper, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.